Making your way through work Monday takes everything you got. Then Monday night rolls around and you realize there's a shot. You're only 10 points away. All those times when your team had no fight, they're just so gosh darn frail. Then your star quarterback let another deep ball sail, and your third round pick bet on his team. Then go check out our streets where everybody knows your pain, and they listen to complaints. You wanna be where you can see our bodies bring you no shame. You wanna go where everybody knows your pain.
Welcome back to another episode of Dad Bod Fantasy Squad. I am here with Rob Norton. What's up, dude?
Not much. How you doing, man?
It's been a while.
Yeah, it really has. Really has.
We haven't been on an episode for at least 2 weeks. It probably was the third week. But then again, this was around Thanksgiving time, so we might not have been on an episode for. That's probably right before Thanksgiving. Was that when? I think that was the last episode we were on together.
I think so. Which is weird because usually it was like once a week,
back and forth.
2 weeks max.
Weird how we had to switch around a little bit.
Yeah, people with it's expected with the holidays and stuff. Everyone's got more busy stuff going on.
What's up, Albert? You went on vacation,
Albert?
Right, with the fam?
Yeah, the last 2 weekends actually. 2 weekends ago, or last weekend, was to my wife's brother in Jersey, and all her their family came in, and we all stayed there.
So you hung out with Tommy DeVito?
Absolutely, he was over.
Yeah, chicken cutlets.
Getting the chicken cutlets. They're delicious, obviously, as you see how he's playing. And then this past weekend we were in Frankenmuth, Michigan. For anyone who knows, it's like Christmas Village, basically. Tons of stuff. We stay at this Bavarian Inn Lodge, it's called. It's got like a full water park kind of thing going on. One of our friends, they have kids right about the same age as our two kids. And so they went with us this time. This was our third straight year, and this was their first time going, and we all went. It was a blast, dude. It was fun, super fun.
Let me ask you a little bit about that, and I know we're getting a little off. We're going to talk waivers and stuff. Water park, I know maybe a married couple that don't have kids, and then they just went to a water park with their niece. I know them; they're friends of mine. Little sad that it was very kid-friendly water park, right? There was only a couple slides, maybe 2 or 3 that were like fun, but then once you do them once, you can't really just ride them 30 times, not as a 30-year-old adult. So, you gotta let those friends know. Is this water park a little bit more kid/adult friendly, or is it definitely targeted for like, this is kid-friendly?
So it's more kid-friendly, I'd say, the water park. It's the park factor, like the slides. There's only 2 slides.
Yeah.
But the slides are more, they're actually kind of more adult friendly slides. Like, they're fun for adults. My son who's 5 wouldn't go on them. He was scared. The other girl who's almost 5, she did go on them. She likes that stuff though, but she went on them. But they're pretty quick, but there is only 2 of them. There is like 2, there's 2 like hot tubs though. And there's like 2 full size. There's 2 like pretty nice pools, things like that. But it's definitely more kid friendly because like right in between all of it, like intertwined with all of it, is like a huge like Chuck E. Cheese like arcade kind of center thing. Yeah. So it is very. But they're putting a expansion in. They're actually the construction is going on right now. Like while we were there, and it's supposed to be done by the fall. And they're adding like 16 new water slides or something. Like it's like.
They're going from 2 to 18.
Yeah, dude. It was. I couldn't believe. I knew they were doing construction because like last time we were there, they said they're going to be starting construction next year, and they've been doing a construction like all this year, I guess. And they said like we were watching the infomercials and the information about all of it, and they talked about it, they said it's going to be the biggest water park in Michigan. So like they're going from yeah. I was like, oh damn, this is nice, dude. We're about to,
so it's going from kids friendly, which is like great. So Great Wolf Lodge is what I'm referring to. Very friendly.
Yeah, definitely.
There's some slides, right? But
you've been to Kalahari?
Which, yes, that's more adult friendly, I think, right?
Yeah, I think so too. Adult friendly. I mean, obviously you have kids stuff too, but it's definitely the top one for like adults. We've been there a bunch of times, and like it's definitely more like my wife and I would just go by ourselves, right? Or with friends. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's what I was curious about, the Frankenmuth place, but it sounds like it's getting to a mix of kid friendly and adult friendly real quick, which will be cool.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. I'm excited for that. Especially as my kids are getting older, starting to get older. It's like, hopefully they'll start doing more of that stuff. So
yeah, that's fun.
Yeah.
But so obviously I was kidding when I was saying my friend, but we had a good time at it. It was fun to hang out with. Our niece is just too young. Our niece is only like 15 months, maybe 16.
Oh, okay. So she can't even do like anything.
There was no slides or anything. Yeah, it was just a kiddie pool. And so it's not like we knew that going into it, but then also having to like be like, oh, well, there's not too much that you guys can do other than hot tubs and stuff.
Right. In addition to it, like it would be cool, like if it's like a Kalahari type, where you could, there's the kids friendly stuff that they could do with the kiddie pool, and then you and your wife could go do all the other stuff, the wave pool and the bigger slides and all that kind of thing. But yeah, it's still, like you said, it's still fun.
It is. So let's get into some NFL news. And one of the pieces that I didn't have that we just talked about was, I don't really consider this news, but I want to talk about it. Tommy DeVito's kind of balling out right now for expectations. Like when you look at Tommy DeVito versus expectations, he is exceeding those greatly. Now, I'm not saying he's playing some sort of level of Patty Mahomes or even Purdy, but he's exceeding some expectations right now. And it really just had me wondering all night last night, is there a chance he's battling for a starting job next year with Danny Dimes? Especially if they don't pick one, which now they're starting to get out of that area.
Right. I don't know. I mean, I guess there's the case to be made, right? They won 3 straight. He's played well. He's played pretty solid in like 4 straight, especially fantasy wise. I mean, it's definitely an option. It's definitely possible. I don't know. I would think that it's more of like a blip on the radar, like in terms of like real NFL. But I mean, I guess you never know, right? I don't know. What are your thoughts on
I did see a tweet that said this is the generation of Linsanity. And as much as I can see that, it's one of those things where like we put so much stake into draft capital and what to expect, but like when a guy that comes undrafted and kind of plays well, or if a guy like Brock Purdy comes in the 7th round and is a MVP contender, it at the end of the day, draft capital can only tell you so much. It's how these guys do in the NFL, and not that Tommy DeVito is necessarily crushing it, but the fact is Danny Dimes hasn't crushed it throwing wise. Like you can't tell me like Tommy DeVito has 9 TDs. Daniel Jones has what over the past 2 years, 17.
Yeah,
it was 15.
Not great.
It was 15 last year. I think he only had 2 this year. Like, and not that that's the only stat, but that's indicative of everything else, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. And he's definitely a guy that's better as a fantasy option because he runs than he is a real life option. And I think the Giants thought they were like kind of trending towards the other way, like trending towards him being a better real life QB, considering they gave him like the cut down on the turnovers and then they gave him the money. So they were hoping, but obviously it was rough this year with 2 touchdowns to 6 picks. Like that was not a good stretch at all for him. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible.
It's not like he got a Joe Burrow contract. It's not like he got a Justin Herbert contract. I'm not saying $40 million is anything to sneeze at, but the fact is his contract is set up where they have an out after next season anyway. So if they're wanting to win team and they figured DeVito is the way to do that. You eat the $40 million and you cut him the next year, or you have him as a backup plan in case DeVito isn't that guy. But I don't know if this is even going to be a question. And I think it all kind of depends on what DeVito does in these last few, right? Like if they go to playoffs, yeah, thank you. I don't know who that is. I think it's Robbie. That looks like a Robbie comment. I think if they go to playoffs, you have to wonder, like, where does this go? I don't know. Just my thoughts on it.
Yeah, it's interesting because my thought is always, I don't think so when it comes to like guys like this, these pumper guys. But that was my same thought on Brock Purdy. So I don't know. It's not. It's. I mean, I guess if you play the odds and the percentages and you say, I don't think so with most of these guys, you're more right than wrong. But who knows, right? He could be nothing, or he could end up being Brock Purdy. Like,
I know that next year when there's things like this that come up, I'm going to have to think of a way to title it, but pretty much in Dynasty, I want to start saying, like, put a flyer out on this guy, put him on your roster. If he sucks, you drop him the next week. Or if it's really like, just if you have a deep enough roster where you can, I'm kind of salty. I don't have Tommy DeVito on some of my Superflex Dynasty teams. Not that I'm necessarily worried, but again, like the Brock Purdy was the same situation. I wish I put out a flyer on Brock Purdy.
Right. Yeah. Most people, I was saying, most people are. I am. I traded for him in a couple of Superflex leagues, like middle of the season this year, like after buying it far too late.
Yep. It's the price is already up at that point, right?
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. So I agree.
And that's something to look back on, Rob, is like, we should have had that same sort of process that we had about Trey Lance, right? It's a system. Mm-hmm. Whether we believe Brock Purdy is that dude, if it's Shanahan or if it's both, we should have had that process already thought out. Like, okay, if he's going to be the starter under Shanahan's offense, or if he's even an option to be that starter, let's add him. Let's get him on rosters.
And that's, I was gonna say I should have like put him on more rosters. I was just trying to be so confident in my take on Lance. I felt like looking back on it, because I've thought about this too, because I was like, why didn't I have him on more? Because I remember saying to you guys like all the time, I'm like, I don't even care if Lance isn't great.
It's Shanahan offense. I remember you saying that. Yep.
Quick hitters, like get the ball out quick. Like whoever's a starter, like that's fine. Like he'll be fine. And like I was just like so gung ho that he was going to be the starter, because I was like, he hasn't had a chance. Like he's just been hurt all the time. Like, and so I was like, there's no way. And I just kept thinking, I was like, there's no way. And I was like, if he's healthy, he's going to be the starter. And I was so like gung ho on that. You know what I mean? Like I just couldn't, and I should have just been like, you know what? Purdy. And that's why though, once it was like more solidified for me that Purdy was the guy, I was full in then at that point. Because I was like, this is the great offense, the great insulated system to be in, great playmakers. Get me in there.
I feel it. We got a question here from Farquad. Hey, gents, been too long. It has been too long, Farquad. Who do you guys recommend for a tight end streamer in standard scoring? Been rolling with Taysom Hill. Was thinking Hunter Henry for TD upside. I don't think Hunter Henry is a bad shot at a streamer. I'm going to try to pull up one of my leagues here and see if I have any suggestions. I have maybe one outside of that. Did you have any offhand, Norton?
I don't have any offhand. I'm looking now though. I mean, the thing is, Logan Thomas has been kind of my guy, but at the same time, he's better in PPR than standard. Like, so like that's kind of a rough one, I guess to say there.
I think there's two that I would highly, highly consider. And one is probably a slim chance that he'll be out there, but he might make his way out there because he's been hurt for 2 weeks in a row. Dalton Schultz, if he makes his way out onto the waivers, either he's there now, or if he makes it out onto the waivers by tomorrow after waivers go through, I think he would be a great option. CJ Stroud down Nico and Tank Dell. A secondary option, although I think I go Dalton Schultz, Hunter Henry, and then this guy probably. But I think this guy has kind of the upside that you're looking for in a better matchup this week. Tucker Kraft.
That's who I was gonna say. Tucker Kraft.
We've seen Jordan Love. Cade Otton's a great one if he's there. Don't have him on my specific league that I have pulled up here. Cade Otton is a really good one, and they face off each other. Green Bay versus Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has been horrendous in the secondary, so I think Tucker Kraft could be an option. He had 64 yards, four catches. But I think the order for me would probably go something like this. Dalton Schultz, number one out of all four guys we talked about. Then Cade Otton. Do you go Cade or Hunter? Because I think I go Cade.
I think I go Cade as well. He's been
doing well the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, he got a touchdown this week.
He did have a 0 against Carolina. Yeah, maybe it is Hunter Henry first then. Let's go. For me, it's Dalton Schultz, Hunter Henry, Cade Otton, Tucker Kraft. I think that's how I would go. Yeah,
and it's pretty close between all those bottom three for me.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I mean, they all are kind of like touchdown or bust. Four touchdowns for Otton, 5 for Henry. Kraft probably doesn't have many considering he came on late.
Yeah.
He's got 1 now, but yeah. So it's all pretty close. Kraft it's funny because Kraft has probably the best matchup of the group with Tampa.
Farquad, watch to see if the person drops him this week. Out 2 weeks. He's very much one of those guys. Like if somebody's not really paying attention to situations, that he could end up on waivers. Now, if you're in a more in tune leagues, people watching what's happening in Houston, they don't have any receivers. I think Schultz will be back this week. So if they're in tune, they'll know not to drop them, but just keep an eye out, see if they do drop them. Other NFL news that I'm going to run through, because I'm going to run through a couple topics, but there's one that I specifically want to highlight. Bill Belichick reportedly to be fired after season. This isn't a huge shock to me. I know that. I think it's because of the buildup, maybe.
Right. Yeah.
Kind of I'm expecting it at this point, I think.
I know. I kind of am too. I'm torn on it because I'm like, part of me was like, oh, they'll just let him go as long as he wants because he's so, grandfathered in. But like at some point you do gotta like move on and be like, hey, maybe it's passed him by a little bit, or he's not as engaged anymore. Kind of like, well, it's like, yeah, it's tough.
I consider it the same way that like when we started watching football. Now I don't know what year that was for you, but like think about some of these coaches that are historically great that we have a perspective of them being horrendous. And like Shanahan isn't the best one for me because I've seen him have some good years, but like think about when old Mike Shanahan,
right?
And he kind of like started trailing off, and like the same for Belichick. So you see him now and you're like, he's too great to be fired, but all of these guys get fired, right? They all do eventually, and you move on. It's hardly, I don't think it happens too often where they just resign.
Yeah, the way I think about it, I compare it a lot to, I mean, for our NBA fans out there, is Greg Popovich. Like, it's kind of like, I don't know if you watch much NBA or.
Well, I know San Antonio's terrible, right?
Yeah, they're terrible, and like his rotations aren't as good as they used to be, it seems like. And there's a podcast guy I listen to a lot on NBA, and the guy talks about it all the time, how like Popovich, the game's kind of like passing by a little bit. Like he's such a like a legendary. Yeah, and it's so similar because they're both similar timelines too. Like they all had like early 2000s success, like massive championships, dynasties all throughout that time.
Yeah,
it was like Tom Brady, and it was Tim Duncan in that era. Like, so it was just like it's an easy correlation for me in that sense.
That's a good one. No, I think that's really good. I think Belichick ends up landing on his feet. I mean, there's rumors about Chargers. Yeah. There's rumors about a couple. And I mean, if he's going to prove himself, he'll get that shot and we'll see it. Reprove himself. He's definitely, whether it was Tom Brady or him, he's got quite the resume and is going into the Hall of Fame. Couple of notes of injuries I wanted to talk about, but we don't really even have to get into these ones specifically. Justin Jefferson was a limited participant. Kind of good news. Was called day-to-day after that serious chest injury that landed him in the hospital. Jamar Chase did not participate after apparent ankle injury. This kind of came out of nowhere. It's Tuesday. Just keep an eye on it. And Tyreek Hill is being called day to day, even though he ended up back in the game. But it was kind of a gruesome tackle. So, any big concerns from these guys for you?
I don't know. I don't think so. I'm guessing it seems like is Jefferson the one that's probably the most worrisome of the group?
You would think he was, but then to get a limited practice in, it was kind of reassuring.
Right. Which is, that's what's weird about it, is that he was the one who left the game and went to the hospital, and he was the one. The other two either finished the game or whatever, and then they didn't practice. So it's a weird. I kind of think all three will play, but it is definitely obviously it's because obviously it's three of the best receivers in the NFL. So
and it's playoff time. We need all three of them to play. This one, however, Justin Herbert confirmed out for the season. Now, sucks. You probably rode him all the way to the playoffs. He's probably on a ton of playoff teams. The real, the shrapnel here, Keenan Allen might take a huge hit from this.
Yeah, as I say, that offense is the whole offense will take a torpedo. And obviously, Keenan Allen being the biggest one. Eckler had been struggling kind of anyways. I don't know how.
Did better this week, which was weird.
Yeah. I think it still hurts Eckler. Obviously, you're taking away a great quarterback, so it kind of sinks an offense a bit. But I think Keenan Allen takes the biggest hit of anyone. And he's going to be on a lot of fantasy playoff teams too, considering where he was drafted and how good he's been.
That's my best ball team. CJ Stroud, Justin Herbert, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and Keenan Allen. First place, one of my few advancements. Probably out I don't even have a quarterback behind those two. So if CJ Stroud messes this week on a concussion, it's over. And it's Jover for your guy.
Absolutely, Jover.
Let's talk some waiver targets. So we wanted to kind of keep this a little bit more short. I'm going to kind of kick off with one of my sneaky ads this week. Now, I don't think I don't know if I plug him into a lineup. It obviously depends on team by team. And I consider myself the least homer of this group. I truly do. If we look at our rankings preseason, I was the out guy on pretty much all the Browns except for Chubb. And I mean, I had Coop. I know Watson. I had about 13 to 15 range, and Cooper somewhere in the 20s. But I was definitely the lowest on those guys just because I know my brownies. But Elijah Moore might be my sneaky ad for the week. And here's a couple reasons why. The schedule, and I don't have it in front of me like a bozo, but we talked about this in text that I wanted to bring this up. 1 second. The schedule he has, it's not an easy schedule. It's kind of a tougher one. It's very mid. Chicago and week 15, Houston week 16, and then the Jets on week 17. So I love the idea of stashing Elijah Moore at the start of your playoffs and then just whipping him out in the championship game. Because you get a guy who's going against a team that gave up on him from a quarterback that left that team as well because they gave up on him. It's a revenge game narrative. And Elijah Moore won't even be, he's not even going to have sauce on him in week 17. That's going to be Amari Cooper.
Yeah, no, I like it. I like it. I definitely, that was the thing too. Like, I was huge on Elijah Moore this week because I was thinking Amari Cooper wasn't going to play. So I was like, I'm all in on Elijah Moore, him and the Joe Flacco connection, baby. I'm in.
It's real. It's
but
real.
He had a solid game even with Amari Cooper, and he's gotten like, I think I was looking at it, it was like I don't know what he got this past week, but in terms of targets, but he got 12. It was like 12, 9, 7, 7 the previous like 4 weeks or something like that. So it was like trending up anyway, and then you got Flacco. Yeah, I mean
Flacco gave him 12 his first week playing, and then 6 his second week.
6. Okay,
So
yeah,
so
which is
18 in
that's
2 games.
definitely even 6. Even on the low end, 6 is doable on a weekly
6
basis.
is
Like,
fine, I think.
yeah,
You probably want to aim a little bit higher if you want to get him in the starting lineup, but like if that's the floor, if 6 is the floor, in this
yeah,
Browns defense is taking hits after hits. This offense line is taking hits. The ball's going to have to come out quicker. Our run game is, I don't want to say is non-existent, but it's not with Chubb. Like there's just a lot of things where like Elijah Moore makes sense. Again, not saying necessarily plug him in there, but I think I would want him on my roster for the rest of the year.
yeah. No, I like it. I like it. I would get him on there. And like you said, that final week, championship week, could be
You have
exciting.
to. You
Yeah.
have to. If
It's
it,
gonna
like
be fun.
if there's
It's gonna
even
be
a
fun.
question like Elijah Moore or this guy, you have to.
Exactly, dude. It's
Risk
all
it.
about fun, right? It's gonna be fun.
It's all about fun. It's a revenge game narrative. Let's stick with wide receivers here. Noah Brown, I think, is an interesting ad. I think a
Yeah.
really interesting ad.
Yeah. It was
So
like you said, it was I think you put out it was bad for Stroud last week. It was bad for Noah Brown too. He had what, 5 targets, no catches or anything.
yep.
So he got goosed. But yeah, if Nico is confirmed,
Sounds like
right?
Nico's gonna be out. Not
Okay.
confirmed for anything. It just sounds like he's out this week.
Okay. And then yeah, and obviously Tank Dell done for the
My
season.
guy Rob, the heartthrob.
Good old commish, my dude. I like it. I like it. That's the first time I've heard that thrown around. So I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll take what I can get when you're getting older. But yeah. So yeah. No, I like Noah Brown. He obviously had that massive run. Like it was like 2 or 3 weeks in a row where he was like killing it, and then got hurt himself, and then fell off a little bit. And then now hopefully like he's fully getting healthier again to the point where he's going to get and obviously if those guys are out, we could maybe see what we saw earlier this year with him if he's fully healthy.
Yeah, I think Nico, a lot of people talking about this is a re-injury to his calf, so it's going to be a little bit longer. I think the expectation is at least the next 2 weeks, at least the next week, and then it's going to be week by week, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But no, everything you're saying it makes a ton of sense. Like the dude went 6 for 6 for 153 and a touchdown. The following week, 7 for 8, 172, got hurt, missed 2 weeks, played a little bit in the Denver game. And last week, we know the disaster that Stroud was in the rain, and Stroud struggled, and he has struggled in bad weather before.
Yep. No,
I
for
think
sure.
He's a bounce back. He's a bounce back player for Stroud. If there's no Nico, there's no Tank, obviously. Noah Brown is the next one up. It's not Robert Woods. It's not what I would have originally in the beginning of season hoped would be John Mechie.
Right.
It's Noah Brown. They didn't play together at OSU, but they're both Buckeyes. And here, the best part, they see Cleveland once, so that's not fun. That's in week 16. They see Tennessee the two of the other times, both times. So you can even get a preview of what to expect. Like, oh, you did good in week 14 against Tennessee. Let's plug you back in for championship round against Tennessee.
Right.
Tennessee secondary is rough. Will Levis is playing better, so they're staying in games, which you ultimately as a fantasy player, you want the other team to stay in games. So if the offense gets better and the secondary still sucks, it's good for anybody that's going against them.
I agree. Were you going to move on to the running backs?
Yes. You ready?
I was going to say, I was going to throw one. I know I was just thinking about this. One receiver in there that we didn't get on there. Odell Beckham is one that I've been eyeing up. I mean, he's a little bit more. Yeah, he's a little bit more roster. I mean, he's still under 50% roster most places you're going to see. But, dude, he's been actually really good lately.
He looks fast, too, which has been surprising.
I couldn't believe it. I was shocked when I saw some of his big plays at earlier weeks. I was like, wait, that's OBJ. What is going on? Like,
I know
he scored double digits, well, at least 11 PPR points in 4 of the last 5 games. The one game was 6.4, but the others were 11, 14.6, 18.6, 19.7. The 19.7 was this week, which was a tougher matchup against the Rams, the toughest one he sees technically, like by fantasy points allowed the rest of the season. And he had 10 targets, 4 for 97 and a touchdown. And the 10 targets like are the most he's seen. And I think it was Dwayne McFarland put out a good thing. Like a lot of his like underlying metrics are looking really good, like really strong. Like his yards per out run, targets per out run. He's like leading the team a lot in a lot of those. And then over the next 3 weeks, like this week he gets Jacksonville. They've allowed the 8th most fantasy points to wide receivers. Next week is San Fran, which is 9th most. And then week 17 is Miami, which is 14th most. So all of them are plus matchups in games that probably they're going to have to throw more often than usual, considering they're against good teams, at least the San Fran, Miami for sure. So like the game script should be more in their favor of getting more pass attempts. So yeah, he's one that I definitely like because before I was huge on Flowers, getting Flowers towards the end of the season for the playoff run, and now like. So the same concept applies with OBJ, considering, he's producing as well. So, and he's one, obviously, you don't got to trade for, you hopefully pick up. But he was one I wanted to touch on a little bit and see there.
It's I think the one piece that you didn't mention is pretty much since week 11 when Mark Andrews went down, Odell has seen 22 targets in the 3 games that they have had. And that's including the game with the Mark Andrews injury, but he left pretty early that game, 7, 5, and 10. So like that's a huge piece of like consistency that you would want. Yep. I love that call out. I wish I had him on my list.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Going to RBs, I had a couple here. And we'll kind of go through these a little bit quick. Chase Brown, some interesting usage here, right? He's not. This is in no particular order because I don't even know where I'd rank these RBs. Maybe we'll try to rank them at the end once I say all 3. His first 2 games back from injury, 15% snaps in the first week he was back. He had 9 touches in those 15% of snaps. 30 snaps in the second game. He had 11 touches. Kind of explosive. I think he's a potential flex option, but it would be risky and desperate. But I think he's definitely worth rostering.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, it might be, depending on the depth of your league, it might be risky, like starting or flexing in situations, But obviously, very dependent on your depth of league as well as like what you're working with. You never know if someone's been streaming week to week in a deeper league, that Brown is serviceable in that situation. And definitely someone that looks like he is the stash for and he would be the guy, the big benefactor. Like if Mixon was to go down, we always talk about those guys that you want to stash in case. So I definitely like that call. Definitely a sneaky one too, because obviously the usage is nice these past 2 weeks.
Yeah, and the fact that if you got him in Dynasty, you have to be feeling pretty good. I'm not saying get crazy, but this is a team that is going to need money and isn't going to be able to afford the RB position. So this is a guy that could absolutely benefit from that, especially if he's having these explosion plays like he has had in his first 2 weeks. And obviously he didn't have a touchdown in the first week, but it was 9 for 61. And I think a lot of that came off a big run. And then this last week he caught a pass for, I want to say it was something like 40 yards or something.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't have it in front of me.
Me either. But no, for sure. I'd be happy if I had him in Dynasty too right now, considering the situation, obviously.
Follow up to Chase Brown. And this one's a little bit more of a, we talked about this weekend as well. A little bit more of a gut feeling, right? Jerick McKinnon. This was a guy that the last 5 weeks of the season last year ended up as the RB2 in points per game. No, just RB2. I didn't do points per game. I just looked at RB2. The year before that, he was used, didn't quite have the success that he did the prior year, but they like using Jerick McKinnon late in the season. The year before that, he comes back in week 18. I think he got 2% of snaps in week 17, comes back and plays in week 18. And I'm counting this through playoffs because I just wanted to look at like how his usage was and how he did fantasy. Here was his 4 weeks in that year. So this is 2021, 14 points, 26 points, 12.8, 12.5. So that one obviously includes playoffs, not fantasy playoffs, but real playoffs. They love using Jerick McKinnon around this time of the year. I wouldn't be surprised to see him more and more involved, especially if Pacheco is out. He had 12 points, I think, this last week. Patty's pissed. He could be in much more packages where Patty has an option to throw to the out. I think McKinnon is, again, going to be a sneaky ad for your playoffs. I think he's going to run it back.
Yeah, those big Chiefs games, like I mean, by big, I mean important Chiefs games, starting a little bit earlier this year, right?
They are.
Yeah. So
they absolutely are.
And that's what it seems like with him, right? They'd save him for the important games, right? So like that's
Denver's
why he won the playoffs.
Yeah. One game out, I think. Yeah.
So it seems like he's always like, to me, obviously Pacheco's come on strong this year, in his second year, but it seems like the last few years, McKinnon has been the guy that's always like the most trusted, right? When it comes to big moments, big games, pass protection, pass like routes, where to be on the routes for Mahomes. And again, like we just mentioned, like with them not having the same success in the win-loss column this year, like those games that are important to them, the more trusted moments are going to be coming more earlier and more often. Like, so I like that. I was tough. It was tough for me because I think I asked you guys last week, like McKinnon or CEH, because some of the stuff I was looking at, like some of it had CEH more, and he did kind of get more of the carries, right? And
he only had 7 total touches. I'll pull up both of them. He had 4 carries, 7 total touches, which honestly isn't the worst, but you for what we're saying, we would want a little bit more. I'll tell you a snap.
You're talking McKinnon?
McKinnon was 45% of snaps.
Okay, so the snap. Did you say McKinnon was the 7 touches, right? 4 carries, 3 catches.
Clyde 48.
Okay, see that's encouraging because I didn't see the snap counts, but by the touch counts, because Clyde had 11 carries, right? If I remember correctly. I feel like I remember seeing like 11, but I may be wrong on that.
There we go.
And because I remember
11 carries, 4 targets. Yep.
I remember thinking, I'm like, oh, that's weird. 11 carries, 4 targets versus 4 and 3. I was like, I would have thought like it would have been like maybe like 10 carries for CEH with like 1 or 2 targets, and then like 5 to 6 carries for McKinnon with like 4 or 5 targets. Like that's what I'm expecting moving forward, though. You know what I mean? Like I'm expecting McKinnon to tick up, especially when you see that snap count. It was fairly even. Like I expect the touches to kind of get more even too, and more of the pass work to go McKinnon's way.
And I don't know if I feel this confident about McKinnon if Pacheco is right back in there. He's not expected to land on IR is what I'm seeing. He has a shoulder contusion. This guy seems like a beast that I would expect to return quicker than we're expecting. But the fact that IR is even in the conversation makes you wonder, is it at least 1 more week? And if it is, then I'm considering picking up McKinnon. I don't know if I'd stream him, but that could be a question for a later day.
Right. And obviously all dependent on the options and situation. But I agree. Like, and that's the fact, like the fact that they were mentioning IR and then they were like, all right, we're not going to put him on IR, like makes me think that he's probably going to miss this week, possibility of next week. But again, like you said, he's kind of like a guy that's kind of beat the odds all his career so far. So
it runs like it too.
Yeah. Like it's his last down, dude, every time.
So mean.
Yeah. But yeah, so, and even still, even after Pacheco comes back, I think McKinnon's going to be more involved than he was like before. Well, McKinnon was banged up too. That's the part of the thing was McKinnon was banged up. But I think, obviously they'll probably try to keep all guys fresh for playoffs and stuff like that too. So,
yeah. I'm going to go to the next one, and I don't know if this guy is going to be available in your leagues. I truly don't know what his roster percentage is. I might ask Norton to pull it up while we're talking, but he landed as the RB1 on the week, and that's Ezekiel Elliott. Throwing it back. The dude had a total of 29 total touches, 22 rushes, 7 receptions. He had 8 targets. He had 140 yards on the day, total a touchdown. It was against the Pittsburgh defense, but after Kansas City, they faced Kansas City this week. Then it's Denver and Buffalo, who have both been pretty weak to the running back position.
Mm-hmm.
He is a guy that could really help your lineup. He is probably the RB1 on this list if he is available. The amount of touches that you'd be getting with Zeke at this time for fantasy football is just invaluable. Like, I honestly, if you're going to give this guy 29 touches, whatever happens. You're taking the decision to go with 29 touches in your lineup because to me, he's a straight plug.
Exactly. Yep. No, I agree. And he's in 68% rostered in Yahoo. So it's probably similar in Sleeper. And then it's probably a little bit more rostered in CBS and a little bit less rostered in ESPN. That's usually from doing the stuff. That's usually what it is. Like it's typically like ESPN has the lowest, CBS has the most, and then the other two, Sleeper and Yahoo, are pretty close. So it's crazy. And
68 isn't a ton, but most likely most competitive leagues, he's probably not available. But 68 ain't a ton.
Right. Especially if you're in a 10 team or two, like make sure he's not out there because he's gonna. I don't know where I'm gonna.
You rank him top 15.
I was just gonna say, he's probably gonna be like top 15, maybe even he might sneak top 10, top 12.
I don't know touches you have. It's almost like you have to.
Yeah. Here's the thing,
right?
Yeah, here's the thing. If Demario Douglas is out again, like I think that contributed a little bit to it. I was listening to some people that think that was like a big reason why he got so many targets was already have or Parker was out too, right?
Devontae Parker was out. They have Juju, Hunter Henry. I don't even know if I could name their other wide receiver.
Tyquan Thornton.
Yeah, it was Thornton, a lot of Thornton.
The other guy, yeah. So it's like if Demario Douglas is out, Zeke could be a big check down option, and we saw it a lot, obviously. And like you said, the matchups are pretty solid the rest of the way, especially the Denver one. And who knows how long Ramondre is out. And it's possible they even keep him out
a year.
Right.
What are you playing for?
Exactly. So Zeke to me is definitely top for you, right? Among the list.
Yeah. He's the top RB
for sure. Like if he's out there, he'd be the top. Yeah. Like if you didn't get him last week, he's the top this week. For sure.
Would you go that way backwards of how we talked about these guys? Zeke, Jarek, Chase, or do you flip Jace and Jarek?
I would go Zeke, Jarek, Chase. Let me see if I'd probably throw actually. I don't know if I guess I'd say if I needed someone this week specifically, I'd put CEH over Chase Brown. But like if I had to choose between starting Chase Brown or CEH, I probably would choose CEH just because I'm more confident in the snap share and touches on a better offense. But if I'm just stashing, I'd rather stash Chase Brown, knowing the upside that he could, or the actual like workload upside possibility. And then, so I would rank it basically like you said, I would do McKinnon before Chase Brown, but it's more of a short term thing, obviously.
Let's talk about two other things specifically related to waivers and playoffs. It's going to be QBs and defensive streamers. We're going to start with QBs. Ooh, this is a great call out, Albert. Thoughts on Ty Chandler if Madison is out? I think in that list it goes Zeke, then Ty.
Yep. I was going to throw him out there too. Because I have him. So in my streamers article this week, which is basically essentially a waiver wire article, right?
Yeah.
Because it's all players rostered in 50% or less of leagues. I have Ty Chandler mentioned as an honorable mention. But if Madison was to be out, Chandler goes to second for me. Zeke,
Same.
then Chandler, then McKinnon, then CEH if you need one this week specifically, or Chase Brown if you don't need one this specifically in your stash. Yeah.
I hate to just kind of agree with that, but I'm fully on same page.
Yep.
So we want to talk a little bit about QBs, and it's just a short thing about QBs. We'll get more talking about the defensive streamers. If there is a QB that is honestly not hurt and they're a top 15 QB, you need to make sure you're looking at the rest of your playoff teams, see what their QB situation is. If it's murky, roster whatever guy that is a top 15 guy, especially I don't want, like, for example, I saw Russell in one of my leagues. He should absolutely be rostered, especially if if there's at least one playoff team that doesn't have a QB. But the guy that I wanted to talk about as far as our waivers go, and this is for the deeper rosters, because I don't think it's more of a speculative ad. I think Nick Mullins is an interesting ad this week. And speculative, and you're also kind of check your playoff team, see if there's a guy with Justin Herbert, see if there's maybe a guy with CJ Stroud, which both are very likely. And I don't know if Stroud plays this week. Nick Mullins faces Cincy, Detroit, and Green Bay in playoffs. But the last piece I want to say is we have a team with Kevin O'Connell as a head coach who is proven to be pretty solid as a coach, definitely offensive minded. So it's not quite your Shanahan system, right? But you're putting a guy out there that could come out there and really succeed. We saw what Dobbs was able to do in the first couple of weeks with Kevin O'Connell when there was no tape on him. Now, see Mullins do that for the rest of the year isn't that far, especially with guys like Justin Jefferson, especially guys like Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. Like, he is surrounded with talent. Thanks, Commissioner Breeze. He is surrounded with talent that it's a very speculative ad. You definitely want to see if there's guys needing QBs, but I think it's worth it if your roster, or if your roster's deep enough.
No, I agree. It's funny because I had actually, there was, the word about Mullins and Dobbs, like after Dobbs had that bad game, and there was like speculation that he may not start this game.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously he came out struggling, and they moved on to Mullins now. I actually had stashed Mullins in multiple like deep leagues and super flex leagues, 2 QB leagues, thinking the same exact thing as you're talking about. Like, he has talent. A lot of pass catching talent, especially like you see the running back situation too. They don't run well. Madison might be out. Like, it's you and same thing. O'Connell's a good QB coach, good offensive mind. They have so much pass catching talent. Like, it's just a good situation, a good setup for him to throw the rock a lot. Good schedule. Yeah, I'm.
Norton, this is showing growth for us, right? We talked about passing on Brock Purdy and all these the Tommy DeVitos of Dynasty. This is showing some growth for us.
Right.
Speculative ad.
You gotta learn. You gotta learn from your mistakes, right? Exactly.
He's gonna come out, throw 5 picks.
Oh, for sure. It's a lock now.
Yeah, it sure is. Let's talk about last on our agenda here, and we'll save these questions if they want to talk about them on Wednesday. I'll put them in their notes. Last on our agenda is Norton wanted to bring up defensive streamers. So, I think this is another key piece for your playoff situation. I'm pulling up your picture now. Sorry.
No, you're good.
When we come to say we don't have a bye and we're going in week 15, round 1 of playoffs, what are some good options for defensive streamers this week?
So love Miami. If they're rostered a lot though, because they've had a really good schedule. But but Miami has been awesome. They get the Jets this week, so obviously that one's great. Texans at Tennessee is a good one. Saints versus the Giants. Browns versus Chicago. Chiefs at the Patriots, and Colts versus Pittsburgh. Like all those, obviously San Fran, but they're like so heavily rostered. I did see them out there in a couple of my like shallower leagues, though. Yeah, a couple. And I picked them up. I just picked them up last week anyway. And just even if I didn't have, and especially because
you roll with them, would you roll with them for the rest of playoffs, or no? You're very big on defensive streamers, but when a defense like San Fran opens up, do you roll with that or no?
So my favorite thing to do with San Fran is pick up a defense that is good for next week, and then to pair with them, because they play Baltimore next week. So I don't really want to start them next week. So I'd be fine if basically just grab any of the Texans, Packers, Chiefs, Eagles. Eagles was my favorite because they were dropped in a lot of leagues, and they were.
Let me rewind you a bit to say those. Yeah. I'm going to rewind you just a slight bit. So he's talking about week 16 when he just mentioned those defensive streamers there, correct?
Correct. Yes.
So what he's also suggesting, if you've already locked up a bye, so if you already got a first round bye, don't just take the week off. Pick up one of these, get your defensive streamers ready, which are, can you run those back one more time? That would be good for week 16.
Okay. So Eagles against the Giants. Eagles against the Jets. I'm sorry. Take that back. Eagles against the Giants.
Eagles versus Giants. You got it.
Texans versus Cleveland. Packers at the Panthers. Chiefs against the Raiders. Jets versus the Commanders, and Seahawks at Tennessee. That's probably my least favorite of the group, I think.
Especially how Tennessee looked last night. And I think you wrote this up sometime last night or the day before.
Last week, actually. Last week. Because I had week 14 included in this before. Obviously, we don't need that now. But yeah, so that I agree. That's the best thing to do is like grab, and especially if you do have San Fran. Like my preference would be if I had San Fran already on my roster and I have the bye, I don't want to start them next week against the Ravens. I want to start one of these teams. So if you have an extra bench spot that, drop your worst bench player and pick up one of these defenses and then play one of them next week and then San Fran the final week.
I am having so many regrets about going this whole year without you having your own defensive streamer segment, because this is an edge, right? Like this is something that people don't normally. Even myself, I get out there, I get a defense that I like. Kansas City's been a big one for me, and I just keep on plugging them in. And I know as somebody that's on a fantasy show, that's probably not the best way to do it, but it's kind of out of pure laziness too. And just trying to figure out, like, get a feel for if these are good streamers or not. But next year we need you to do a streamer segment, 5-minute, 10-minute segment per week, talking about the best defensive streams, because this is great. So you even have on here now, I got a question for you. We talk, obviously roster spots are going to be incredibly valuable at this stage of the game. So week 17, you have some things to plan for. Now, if you're a bye week candidate, because I don't think you would do this if you're just in first round, you definitely can't have 1 to 3 different defenses on your team, and you're not going to be planning for week 17 anyways. But if you're a bye week team, do you consider planning for week 17 if you are going to make it to that championship, which would mean you would hold 2 different defenses?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, as to your point about the streaming stuff, I mean, and like the segment.
I wish I did, Braze. I wish I did. I had them on a couple teams too, and I just let it ride because they started off hot.
Right. And I would say shameless plug, but as of last week, heading into week 14, you're looking at the number 1 DST ranker on Fantasy Pros. Damn. I will say that. You know what I mean?
Wait,
it's just
what are you doing on say it? You got to be demanding this. You're gonna say, give me a defensive streaming segment.
No, it's funny. I think I was just pulling
It
up to
could have
see if
been
I
great
dropped.
content. So we got to remember
I know.
that by next year. I'm serious.
Yeah, we will for sure. But yeah, I just looked up. I did drop to 3.
Oh shit.
Not everyone does it, so I mean, it is what it is. But there is at least 100 people that do it for sure because I see people ranked 100. So, but yeah, it's more about like, and I've talked to you guys about it too. Like, and we'll get into it more next year too with streaming. Obviously, like a defensive streaming quick segment on teams to go after. It's more about attacking quarterbacks, attacking teams that allow a lot of pressure, and then combine with teams that create a lot of pressure because. And combining it with the spreads. Like if they're a heavily favored team that gets a lot of pressure and facing a team that gets a lot of pressure, that's the best thing because basically the ideal situation is your team gets a big lead. The other team is forced to drop back more often because if they drop back more often, that's more opportunities for sacks and turnovers. And if you're applying more pressure and that team allows pressure, then it's really more sacks and turnovers. So that's where obviously the pick sixes and fumble sixes come. But again, like I said, that's kind of the thing. But yeah, I would hold 2. I would hold 3. I actually was holding 3 in like a league or 2 that I did. That was like a deeper league where I didn't love like some of my last bench spots. I was like really stacked to the starting lineup and I didn't really like some of my bench spots. And I held 3. I dropped 1 heading into last week. So I'm down to 2, but I don't have a problem holding like that.
I would, if you're a team, this is me. This is coming from my perspective on. I think that roster spot might be used better, but again, like this varies so much. It depends on who's available,
100%.
who is how deep are your rosters. I could see it more just on a just a general sense. I could see it more if you're a bye week team getting your 2 defenses for next week,
for sure,
and then. But for like a person, if you're seeds 2 or 3 through 6 or 3 through 7, 3 through 8, I think you got to win that first week before you get too crazy on what you're doing with those roster spots.
Yeah,
but it depends. That's a general statement, right? Like if you're a deep roster, of course, get your defenses ready.
Right. If you have a lot of bench spots, that's the best spot to be able to do it because, like for example, like I was like rostering. I don't even remember who I was rostering. Honestly, like it was a single QB league, and I was rostering like some. Oh, I was rostering because I had three receivers on bye in week 13, so I had to pick up receivers to fill in because I was just hoarding backup running backs, stashing them like I do, and I picked up Greg Dortch, Justin Watson, and someone else. I don't remember exactly, but I dropped two of those guys for defenses and one of them for a QB to replace Geno for this week. And I was like, whatever. I was like, the rest of my lineup is loaded. I'm not really worried about it. And there wasn't a lot out there because of deep benches. So but again, that was the only league that I had 3. There are a lot of leagues I do have 2 though.
And those guys, and you don't really know it till like it burns you in the face, but those guys don't feel like high upside guys either, right? Like
exactly.
You don't want to get rid. I can't think. I guess this is on my mind because I've been talking about him all day, but like I'm not gonna go because Rashi might not be cracking into lineups yet. I'm not gonna go drop Rashi before
no way
for a defense. Yeah, so like, and I know that's way different. He's way different than Dortch. I'm just trying to use an example, and he was fresh on my mind.
For sure.
Albert asked, would you guys start Stafford over Tua this week? So
I don't think I could.
I don't know, dude. It's Stafford versus Washington, I believe.
Yeah, I know it's a much better matchup.
I think it's Cooper Kupp week. I think we get Cooper Kupp wide receiver 1 this week, baby.
I'm hoping, dude. Man,
I think he's back. I
hope so.
Look,
I know it's literally like almost the exact opposite ends, right? Like Jets versus Washington in terms of pass defense, but
that's the other thing. So like, it's easy for me if Tyreek is out. Easy.
I would say if Tyreek's out, I'm fine doing it. But if Tyreek's not, it's tough.
Two against the Jets. I don't know. I think Rob's.
He did have a tough game against them.
I am for Stafford over Tua this week. Washington is such a cake matchup right now.
It really is. It really is.
And we haven't had a huge Stafford game yet, so we're kind of due. Rent is due, baby.
It honestly really is. And he has been pretty good the last 3 weeks, 24, 23, 23. It looks like.
We're going 30.
Yeah,
the other thing, here's
we'll
the problem is like, how bad is Washington? Is Howe going to try to keep his job? Hopefully, because we need them to stay in the game. That's always my thing. Stay in the game, keep Stafford throwing. I think I would take Stafford over Tua this week, but we will do. Oh, we might not do our studs and duds episode this week. So, yeah, I think it's Stafford over Tua for me.
I can't blame you. I can't blame you. It's closer than I originally just dismissed it a little bit, but it is definitely
matchup
closer.
Spectrums, right?
Yeah, for sure. And Thursday I'll have a better idea when I start doing the rankings and seeing where I come in on guys and stuff like that. But it's tough.
I wouldn't drop Tua for Stafford.
No, yeah, that's the thing is if you're only rostering
switching
Tua,
them in your rest. Yeah,
I wouldn't.
You getting distracted by Mark Moran popping in saying hi, Daddy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Always.
Always.
But yeah. So then, that's the thing is if you have to drop Tua to get Stafford because you don't want to drop anyone else on your bench, I wouldn't do that. I feel lucky. I didn't have Tua in a whole lot of leagues. I did have him in some. A lot of leagues I have him. I actually do have a bye, which I love that because then I don't have to even worry about him this week, and then I can just plug him back in next week and go. Even though it's not great matchups necessarily for him the rest of the way, but still, I'd rather avoid this matchup in this situation. But yeah, I wouldn't, like you said, don't drop him if that's your only option. I would just hold and hope for the best in that situation.
Feel it. Well, Norton, that wraps up our waiver show. We'll be back tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern with Dynasty Chat, maybe some more playoff planning. I'm going to send a couple questions to the guys. I think it's Robbie and Alex, I'm assuming, and see if they want to answer them on that show. If you guys aren't already following us on Twitter at DadBodFS, Norton has his handle right there at Norton0723, and let us know if you have any questions. We might be a little bit in and out this week. I don't know what our Thursday plan is currently, and I don't know what our Sunday plan is currently. So we will be active on Twitter and answering questions on Twitter if we don't get to you guys on an episode. Any last thoughts, Norton?
No, keep making those good plans for the playoffs. We're almost there. This is what we've been working towards all season, right? So
dreaming of.
Or exactly. Bring home them championships.
Bring home those chickens.
Absolutely.
All right. For myself, for Norton, we love you guys. Peace. Thank you for watching our episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
If you aren't already following us on Twitter, check us out at DadBodFS.
We'll be posting all of our best clips and videos to all of our social media: TikTok, Instagram, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube. You can find us on there at DadBod Fantasy Squad.
Lastly, if you'd rather just listen, we make sure we post our audio of each episode on all the major streaming platforms. Stick with us all season long so together we can count our trophies and not our calories.